Hi, friends. I'm Paul Nixon. I speak to you from my home in Washington, D.C. We're about 6 weeks into the coronavirus um, social distancing vortex, and life has become pretty strange. Strange to our expectations, strange to our habits, our sensibilities. You could call this season the weirdening of life. And yet, for older people, this weirdening thing has been happening for quite a while. The world has been growing stranger. The technology, the people diversity, it all seems alien. Shifting of culture. For churches in the English-speaking parts of the world, the church leadership, the core participants, tend to be 20 to 40 years older than the average population. And so the world looks increasingly weird to a lot of church leaders because we remember the time when our sanctuaries were full, when the world made sense to us, when our youth ministries thrived. Recently, I took my mother to a church that we had attended as a family 50 years ago. I was in the second grade, first and second grade, and we were participants in a church in a mid-sized town that had been served by a British expat minister who had a very strong sense of propriety about things. And so it was a very high church place, a very formal place. And as 50 years later, as we walked up the front steps at 11 a.m. on Sunday, we were shocked when we heard drums inside. We looked at each other. It was like, no, not here. But we went in, and sure enough, the stained glass windows were still glorious. The pews, still the original wood. But nothing else was right. It was all very weird. As we drove away, shaking our heads, we decided that this church had a good future because it was morphing with its local culture. And that's a good thing. It probably is more indigenous to its locale today than 50 years ago. And that's a rare thing. A few years back, my friend Beth Estock and we wrote a book together. We titled it Weird Church, Welcome to the 21st Century. That book invites church leaders to a deep rethink of this thing we call church. In the book, Beth and I suggest several paradigm shifts that could be helpful in a rapidly changing world, and we offer multiple examples of how we see the church thriving in a variety of contexts. But there is nothing weirder, really, about the thriving churches in our time than anything we see in the book of Acts. Weird is relative. When 25-year-olds with very little experience of organized spirituality walk into most existing churches, what they see is weird. Often, the weirdness that they discover is so off-putting that they cannot see any good news at all. That's a problem. Beth and I traveled in North America and in Europe following the publication of our book. We had some wonderful conversations with church leaders. And in almost every place, we asked this question: what would it look like for the church to be less of a broadcast and to be more of a platform. Less broadcast, less performance by the management team, and more of a platform for a larger circle of people to share faith. What would that look like? We had people work in circles thinking about that. A platform where faith is shared, where questions are shared, where ideas are debated, where people rediscover how to celebrate, how to mourn, how to reframe. What would it mean to enlarge the pool of artists who got to display in the gallery? What would it mean to let go of our control or our anxiety about those things that might be said in this group or that, but to allow the groups to self-monitor? What would it mean to create a platform around shared value, classic Christian themes, and big ideas? While celebrating the convergence of those themes and ideas with modern sensibilities, or with Buddhist or Hindu sensibilities, or whatever folks bring with them as they authentically show up. When church shifts from broadcast to platform, there's a few things we need to note. First of all, the leadership team still curates the platform. It is not a free-for-all. Gentle and gracious watch will be kept regarding the boundaries of expression that can be tolerated, and that is going to vary from church to church. Secondly, church's platform assumes that the leader team still produces content on Sunday mornings and at other times, but it increasingly invites non-management to also produce content, and it links to the content that others produce. Third, it is all about conversation. A platform thrives when conversation can happen in and around it. It invites conversation, it invites art, it invites mission projects that it did not directly create, authorize, or even manage. Fourth, church's platform recognizes that the church finally belongs to the people. The church belongs to the people primarily and not to the priestly clergy class. Now, this is a tender subject. The last 500 years of Christian history could be read as a slow unraveling of clergy control of the Christian faith. And yet, even in those churches where pastoral power has been reduced, we still have pastors. And we love them. We look to them. We listen to them. At times we follow them. They comfort us. They help us. But the days when clergy can run things, those days are past. We can try. We'll just get frustrated because the world is not listening to us. Our own members aren't listening to us. They haven't been paying that much attention to us for a good while now. Increasingly, we are talking to ourselves in a bubble, and it is a shrinking bubble. I say all this as a clergy person, and I deeply value my ordination, which for me means that the church has placed some trust in me. Yet I know that the day is over when all the donations of the people who trust me will go to the institution that I serve. And the day is over when people need me to access the presence of God or to experience sacrament. In fact, that very idea was an illusion the whole time. We Christians never really needed a priestly class to mediate anything to us. Voluntarily, by tradition, we allow certain persons to baptize our children, to serve us the Eucharist. But this is tradition and nothing more. Church as platform recognizes that we can convene people together for holy collaboration, but we can never fully control them. We can invite people to make covenant, but we always understand that there is gospel, there is life, there is salvation, all of it beyond the covenants that we oversee. Nor should church, any church, pretend to be the only legitimate option for spiritual seeking or for people's discipleship, should they choose to follow Jesus. We're 6 weeks into the Corona-19 vortex, with probably, 12 to 24 months to go. And almost every trend of social change has intensified and sped up in the last 6 weeks. And at this rate, can you imagine where we will be in 2 years? Right now, the buildings are closed, but soon they will reopen. And when they reopen, it will still not be safe to gather the way we're used to gathering. You think online church is weird. Try worshiping in a sanctuary 10 feet from the next person with minimized singing and no handshakes, no hugs, no self-serve coffee afterwards. In some cases, people coming and going all week long in order to be safe. I thought recently of the old verse, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. And I'm thinking, I will be glad because I miss those places. I miss that holy space. But it is at least 18 months from the time when we can crowd shoulder to shoulder once again and lift candles to sing Silent Night the way we want to do. So the worship gathering, which has been the center of Christian identity and practice for centuries, the worship gathering is broken. It is broken into smaller pieces. It's broken into online pieces, as well as soon some live in the house pieces. But it will be happening all hours of the day and night. Pretty weird church. Friends, this COVID thing is going to pass, and many churches will try to get back to normal, only to discover that their members are no longer paying them attention. In other cases, attending even more sporadically, giving money less predictably. They may also discover a whole new group of people who aren't members but who are paying attention. We better make the shift from church as broadcast to church as conversation, to church as platform. As we have increasingly led people to our Facebook pages and our websites, we have been inviting people into platform. You can access platform through either of those kinds of places, and there are other ways that churches can create platform. Not so long ago, I thought of a website as really kind of the virtual church office, a place to find information, to sign up, to donate. Suddenly, it's become the lobby, and it needs good doors and signs to lead us to places and experiences that will offer us life, especially interactive places and experiences. Some in the building, some maybe in a pub or in someone's backyard, some online, some produced by management, others produced by friends, persons of goodwill outside the management, often creative teams and partnerships that extend far beyond our official structures. In a church that understands itself as platform, the role of leadership changes just a bit. I see the role of leaders in this weird new age primarily as storytellers. We shape and we craft an overarching narrative. We share the stories of what God's people are up to, and we celebrate gospel wherever we can see it. We invite multiple voices into the storytelling. And folks, even as storytellers, it's a bore when we do all the talking. So we interview. We link folks to good podcasts. We challenge initiative from the masses and celebrate loving and creative innovation, especially when we didn't think of it. That's how to run a compelling spiritual platform. Participation, volunteering, tithing, all of these things will attach to platforms that are compelling. If people believe that your church, that your platform is a life-giving place, I think your church has a pretty good future. Folks, whether it's in Alabama or in California or in the UK or in Ethiopia, the world is never going to be the same. The church is not going to be the same. It's going to be weird. I invite you in this time, in this COVID season, to do a deep rethink. More than just simply figuring out how you're going to keep track of your flock, your dwindling, aging flock, while they're connected online. There are bigger questions than this. It's a time for paradigm shift. It's a time to increasingly understand, as we are living in the emergence of online platform, it's a time to discover the possibilities of a church that is not primarily a club. It is not primarily a clergy dominated entity, nor something that happens cloistered away from the world in a building. Church can be platform. I invite you to think about that, to pray about that, to converse with friends and leaders in your churches about that. And honestly, I look forward to feedback from you. If you would like to have conversation with me or any of the team at Epicenter Group, you can contact us by way of our website, which is epicentergroup.org. We would love to have conversation with you, either online or one of these days in person. It's always fun to come out and to see how a church and a ministry is engaging locally in its very specific context. And we look forward to the opportunity to continue to engage with church leaders around the world as you seek to live into this brave new world. Thanks for this time.